Slow it down there, Chief. There is, in fact, a place for spinning your poi slowly, whether you have a wedding gig or whether you're just trying to flow to something that's got just a little bit lower BPM. Spinning slowly can be a little bit of a challenge for us poi spinners. So how exactly do we pull it off? Well, I've got 5 tips for you in this video. Drex here from DrexFactor Poi, sharing with you the love of poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain. And in this video, I'm going to teach you a whole lot about spinning slowly for a variety of different purposes. But before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Fire Mecha, Flow Toys, Pyroterra Light Toys, and Ultra Poi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all of these amazing companies and the work they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links down in the description of this video. All right, so stop me if you've heard this one. You start off learning your poi tricks pretty fast. Sometimes it's just the best way to make it feel like all the pieces are falling together. Sometimes you say start off by learning glow sticks, but either way, you wind up in a place where it feels totally normal to spin the poi really, really, really fast. And hey, audiences tend to love it, right? There's just one problem. When, say, you get called up for a wedding gig, or there's a piece of music that you want to flow to that's a little bit more slow and mellow, how exactly do you make the adjustment? Well, turns out this is not as hard as you might think. Some of the mechanics of how to do this are buried inside of specific poi tricks, and some of them are just buried inside of using very specific performance techniques. So let's talk about them. Starting with tip number 1, use pendulums when possible. I know, the lowly pendulum. That poi trick that just seems so boring that most people don't even bother with it most of the time, unless it's part of something that is a little bit more challenging. But here's the thing. Pendulums are built with a specific tempo in mind. That is, you can't really speed them up much more than what you need to in order to get them to drop and go around. This, by default, slows the props and your spinning down, and it means that you're more likely to be able to hit those slower tempos. And of course, that doesn't mean that you're locked into only doing super boring poi tricks. You know, we have our 1.5s if you want to go a little bit more complicated than a basic pendulum. We also have things like these triquetra versus pendulum hybrids that eat up a lot more space, and that, quite frankly, look pretty techy in and of themselves if that's what you're looking for here. There's a lot of different answers. Sometimes there are variations on hybrids that you already know. And quite frankly, there are sometimes things that you can do that incorporate elements of both anti-spin flowers as well as pendulums. This right here is an old classic that Thomas Johansson used to do all the time. And of course, pro tip, if you're going to use those pendulums, make sure that you're not using short poi, make sure that you are using long poi. That is going to give you the maximum possible delay as you are performing these poi tricks. So let me show you some pendulums in action here. Okay, so pendulums are a great option if you want to stick with a specific poi trick, but what if you want to diversify your poi tricks? What if you want to play with stuff that doesn't involve pendulums at all? Well, tip number 2, volume is your friend. So again, this is one of those things that the way many of us learn poi isn't really conducive to this, where we kind of play around with keeping our tricks close to us with T-Rex arms, but a miraculous thing happens when you open up your arms and allow them to explore the full range of motion around you. Guess what? The tricks slow down. In fact, I can do my thread the needles half as fast if I extend my arms as if I'm trying to keep them small and close to my body here. This is a trick that works with pretty much any poi trick. For example, with your 3-beat weaves, you can open up on either side to really slow them down and make them feel more languid. And even if you're playing around with flowers, you can expand out the length of your arms to really, really, really slow them down and make them feel nice and chill for your audience. Now, this is going to take some practice because more than likely you have learned to spin by tucking your arms in close to you. Something I recommend doing to loosen up your arms and make them a little bit more friendly with expanding outward is to just try a quick exercise to loosen up all the muscles in them. You can start by rolling your wrists out 8 times and then inward 8 times, rolling your shoulders back 8 times, and then rolling them forwards 8 times. Taking your elbows back 8 times, taking them forwards 8 times, reaching up, back and forth with each hand 8 times. And after doing this, I think you'll find that it'll be a lot easier to go from this to this and be able to loosen up your arms just a little bit. Make sure those elbows are not flexing the entire time, and you're going to have a great time with it. Cool. So let's see some volume in action there. Tip number 3, stillness is powerful. I know. We all want to be busting out all of our hardest tricks and going as fast as we can because, well, if we don't, we're a little worried that our audience is going to lose interest. Here's the thing, you have a longer leash on this than you think you do. You might be surprised to find that if you bring the poi to a stop, people are not going to start booing. In fact, you've probably got a good 2 or 3 seconds when you can do something like move slowly or just stay there and give the audience a look before you come back into moving. Stillness turns out to be a really, really powerful tool of contrast, especially in performance situations. The absolute master of doing this is Ronan McLaughlin. If you see any of his old performance videos, you'll see that he stops the poi constantly or plays around with what happens if he keeps the poi in stillness. Indeed, his whole vertical stacking thing involved quite a bit of stillness. And I think it's one of these reasons that other poi spinners really didn't pick up on this. It feels like something that shouldn't work, but, well, I think it does. So as you're spinning to slower tempos, experiment with bringing the poi to a stop. That's going to help you adapt to those slower tempos and be able to catch your breath before moving on to the next thing. It also creates a lovely contrast and engages in some storytelling with the audience. Your next amazing trick is going to read a lot more amazing if it comes right after a moment of comparative stillness and quiet. So let's see some stillness in action, and I'm willing to bet it's going to be a lot less boring than you're anticipating. Okay, so we've looked at specific poi tricks, we've looked at specific poi techniques, and we've looked at not moving the poi at all. So what else could there be to explore? Tip number 4, feel it in your whole body. So I'm willing to bet most of us feel as though our flow goes through our entire bodies already. And, that's probably true. However, when you flow in such a way that the poi move seems to course through your whole body, through your feet, through your hips, all the way through your arms and back, it has this interesting property wherein rather than just kind of moving your hands around, if you exaggerate it with your whole body, it'll slow the trick down. Pretty cool. And once again, you can play around with this by doing some exercises to loosen up your body. I, in particular, am a fan of doing an exercise wherein first I loosen up my back by rolling it down, and then shaking my head no, and shaking my head yes, and rolling it back up to get mobility in my back. Then exploring the space with the top of my head, and exploring the space with my fingertips, and then exploring the space with my hips to loosen up all the joints in my body. And once that happens, I tend to find I go from something like this to something more like this. And when I do, I also find that I can slow down my spinning by quite a bit. Now, it does need to be said, this does take a little bit of training, but I personally think not only does it help in slowing down the poi tricks, but also it just makes them look more entertaining. I think that going from this to this is way more engaging for an audience. Your mileage may vary, but the ability to adjust the tempo will not. So let's see some examples of that in action. So we have talked tricks, we've talked techniques, we've talked stillness. We have also talked how to get your whole body involved. So what could possibly be waiting for the last option? May not be what you expect. Tip number 5, know when to break out of it. So this is definitely going to be the most counterintuitive thing on this list. But, well, part of what sells spinning slowly is occasionally breaking out of it and spinning quickly. I can take something that's moving very, very slowly and languidly, and I can make it feel all the more slow when I bookend it with something that's really fast. You'll find actually that if you switch back and forth between the two, you're going to work with a lot of contrast, and it'll help the slower stuff really, really stand out more. There's an exercise I really enjoy giving my students wherein I'll put on a piece of music and I'll have them spin as slowly as possible for 20 seconds, and then for 10 seconds they'll go as fast as they possibly can, and then slow back down for the next 20 seconds. This is great for being able to explore differences in tempo and also explore the contrasts that happen as you go back and forth between them. It'll also train your body to be able to jump up and then come back down, and that'll be helpful for hitting those low tempos in general. Do be choosy about when you switch to those faster tempos though, because if it's really out of alignment with the music, it's really going to stand out. So try and do that when there's some kind of transition in the music, like a drum roll or something like that. Eventually, you'll get a feel for it. So let's see some examples of that in action. Awesome, friends. I hope that was helpful, and I hope this gave you some ideas on how you can spin to music that is a little bit slower. Do you have other tips on how to spin to slower paced music? Leave me a comment and let me know. Also be sure to like, share, and subscribe to help other people find this video and to help my channel grow. This video would not be possible without my amazing supporters on Patreon. In particular, I'd love to give a shout out to my Flow patrons who are listed on screen right now. Thank you all so much for your very generous support. And if you out there watching dig the work that I do and would like to get your name in the credits or access to a whole host of other awesome rewards, you can do that by signing up for my Patreon over at patreon.com/DrexFactor Poi. The idea for this video was actually one that was suggested by a Patreon supporter. So go check that out and please help me out in my mission to bring poi spinning and flow arts to the whole wide world. You can find a link to it down in the description as well as up in the cards. Thanks in advance. And if you'd like more information about exploring levels and volume with your flow, I have this video that I did several months ago that covers some of the basics if you want to get into this. I'll go ahead and link to it here on screen as well as down in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to get out and flow yourselves today, and I'll see you with a new video real soon. Take care now. Peace.